It's definitely challenging. I think a lot of online retailers are faced with the exact same issues where, okay, this is what we did last January. This January, we need.
So, welcome to the show, Julia Valentine.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have you here. So, why is it important for brands and companies to get their marketing right?
Oh my God, very broad question. I think like I work exclusively with e-com brands, and a lot of them are self-funded companies that are like very founder-led. And I think in this day and age, if you are an e-com brand exclusively online, that social presence is all that you have. Um, and getting that right is going to be the biggest driver of your revenue, because how else would anyone know about your brand?
What do you mean by how would anyone know about your
I
brand?
mean, if you had a brick and mortar, people could pass by it on the street or something. Whereas now, if it's completely online, which all the brands I work with are, it's just the only way to have a chance to stand out there and get people to notice you.
No, I didn't think of that because it's more the internet. Whilst it's you can connect with loads of people, you
Yeah,
can it
exactly
meet
that.
yeah, but then you've got that. I never considered the other side of it where it's very easy to go quiet on there. You could literally have all the social media accounts but not show your face and go by a completely different alias. I mean, I could go by Ashley Harris or something like that, and no one would know who I actually am.
Yeah, exactly that. So all the brands that I work with are brands that have grown completely from their online presence. So a lot of them have grown very quickly through TikTok, for example. A lot of people who have, really great personality and have that ability to connect with their audience have had videos go viral and build from, zero to millions of pounds a year revenue just off of that. And oftentimes it's young women who maybe don't have necessarily a background in business been able to create super thriving businesses just from that ability to connect with people online. So it's been a real cool switch, I think, when oftentimes, few years ago, like women weren't necessarily in a position where they had an opportunity to build businesses from no experience. Like you needed oftentimes like funding and backing, which they've been able to get around through their ability to connect with their audience online. So I think TikTok has been a really cool driver of that, where people again like with no experience been able to build really thriving businesses, and it's been really cool to see that.
You've mentioned TikTok quite a bit. Why are most of your clients using TikTok, especially now with the ban in America, where I could imagine that most people going, "Oh, damn it, there goes half my revenue stream."
Well, I only work with brands in the UK, and we've had TikTok shop here longer than they had it in the US. So it's not been a huge issue for us here. Um, and I think maybe like 50% of the brands that I work with have grown from TikTok. Like I said, if you get a video going viral, you could, sell out in 24 hours. And it's oftentimes that route where, people who don't necessarily have like funding or experience been able to get in a position where they have, businesses and staff members and all these things that, a few years ago, some of them were working like really low skilled 9 to 5 jobs. So it's been an interesting way for someone who don't necessarily have, that traditional background of like uni degree, etc., to like build businesses in a non-conventional way.
I want to poke in a little to about unique backgrounds because, like you said, some of your clients don't have uni degrees. They don't. Their family hasn't got background of business, or maybe they're just more of an outcast in their family, so they're doing the business thing while their entire family's in the army, for example. Who has been your most unique client in terms of their background?
Well, um, so it's hard to say. Like everyone's so different, but one of like the favorite brands that got to work with last year, and she's very vocal on her own socials that she used to work in a scrapyard before she started a beauty brand, and she does like 500,000 a month in revenue now. So it's really cool that that's grown and taken off so much, and it's just built on pure passion and hard work, and someone who is just learning by doing it. And I think it's a nice inspirational story that, if you really believe in something and you have a passion for it, you can build it to those level. And yeah, it's been fun. Like together we've been like, okay, we've never had really thought about like HR issues or like payroll issues or cash flow issues, like the stuff that we've never ever come face to face with. And then you just find yourself in this situation where you're like, wow, we really like don't know what we're doing here, but we figure out along the way. So it's, yeah, like it's been, I think, quite inspirational for anyone out there to know that you can do it that way and you don't necessarily need to have a formal education. Although it does help because I have one and I do think that I draw a lot from it.
In what way?
I've got a degree in marketing and that's what I work in. And I think having that foundation knowledge of like the core principles is really good. Although with digital marketing, it changes all the time. Like the strategies that I do now, I didn't do them a year ago. And when I go to like upskill and do courses within my field, if it's more than 6 months, like a course that's more than 6 months old, I wouldn't invest in it because it changes all the time. So it's very, very dynamic landscape, but the principles of marketing always remains the same. And I think having that foundation knowledge is really good because you can build on it in whatever um, you know, channel or like organic presence that you're in to be able to draw on that because it will, yeah, like it will always stay the same, I think.
It sounds like a massive challenge if, as you said, the marketing landscape's always changing, but then you've got to facilitate your clients and bridge that gap to get them from where they currently are to where they want to go. How, from a practicality side of things and support side of things, how do you do that? Because let's say you're working with someone for 2 years, and then to use your time frame, the marketing landscape would have changed within 4 times within that period.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely challenging. I think a lot of online retailers are faced with the exact same issues where, okay, this is what we did last January. This January, we need to do something completely different because what worked last year isn't going to cut it anymore. Every year it gets more competitive. Every year it gets more expensive to advertise online, like on the platforms. It's the more competitive it is, the more expensive it gets. And it feels like there's always new businesses popping off and everyone's rushing to invest into paid ads and other things. So it's definitely always becoming more difficult and you always need to think of something completely new to try. And I think those are the businesses that thrive the most who aren't relying on what used to work or um, repeating themselves too much. Like you need to make sure that you're always trying new things, which is um, both really exciting and also terrifying because you feel like you have to make up your job every day and come up with something completely new to do. So it's a challenge, but it's also like really good fun because I'm like a really creative person, so you can really make anything out of nothing, which is quite cool.
I suppose the benefit to your job is that with it, you're constantly having to come up with new ideas. There's that element of play and experimentation.
Yeah,
Because yeah, so at the moment, the I think we both agree the main thing is to get the hook right when it comes to when you start a video. But let's say like 2 years later, that's completely irrelevant, and it's no longer get the hook right, get the very middle of the video
yeah,
right.
yeah,
Well, you don't know. Like
yeah.
that's my point. So then you kind of have to go and experiment with it. So okay, so the hook doesn't work anymore because people are just gonna doesn't matter, but they want the midpoint to be so good so they carry on watching. So then you start playing with that.
I mean, that's exactly it. And I think any type of marketing, whether it's, email or organic posting or ads, you're always trying to test as many variables as possible. And we always allocate 20% of our budget to just testing new things that we don't know if it's going to work or not. And that's ultimately the case because you can do as much research as possible and check out every competitor you have, but ultimately, you're not going to know until you test. So we spend a lot of money just testing things, and some of that didn't work and we just forget about it. And then some things you find like this little grain of rice that just works so well. And then you just expand into that area of whatever, like it's kind of like letting the market do the marketing to see like what resonates with people. And you can do that in real time, which is quite good when you're reaching people on social media where people hang out. Whereas, back in the day where you might have done going around like leaving flyers in letter boxes, you don't really know, you don't get a lot of feedback on it, whereas we have like instant feedback of what people clicked on, what people open, how long they watched the videos. So having that data, it's very reactive, which also makes it quite interesting because very quickly we can just shift into another direction based on the feedback that we're receiving.
I suppose as well that with the problem with like your example with the leaflets is you don't know how many have thrown that in the bin.
Yeah.
How would you say the marketing landscape has changed since you've been first started?
I think so. I've always done ads like paid social, your TikTok ads, your Facebook ads, and that sort of stuff. And I think in the last 5 years, with the rise of AI and stuff like that, it's become much easier in the sense that you let the algorithm do all the hard work. Before, traditionally, you had to, be very granular with who you wanted to see your ad. You had to pick, okay, people aged 25 to 28 who live on this street, who has pets, who does this and this and this. You had to be like very specific to try and reach those people. You don't have to do that anymore. The algorithm is much smarter than what you and I are. So you just put it to anyone who is interested in my product. Because ultimately, a lot of us have been on Facebook since we were teenagers and even younger. So Facebook knows so much about us. They know who their users are, whereas like on TikTok, it's much harder because they don't have a lot of information about their users yet because it's quite a young platform, right? So nowadays you can just set everything to broad targeting and let Facebook find the right people for it. And that's what's working the best. And I think in the last year as well, even more so with the AI and algorithm, you just leave it very broad. And I think nowadays they're rolling out every week, it seems like on Meta, like new AI optimizations where they will do the creative for you, they'll think of the text for you. You don't have to do much to get an ad up and running. How good it is, I don't know. In terms of, I think the AI has not really been able to crack the creative side of it, but like the manual side for sure.
I also call it delegation
Yeah.
because you're just essentially giving it to, hey, hello there, YouTube AI. Here's my thing. Go make that blow up. But then I suppose as well, like you're saying with the creative thing, AI can only copy. It can't come up with ideas. I did a business networking event last month, and we had to basically try and sell businesses that made loads of money. But keep in mind, these were really gimmicky businesses. So one was bottled air, the other one was pet rock, and we got sunglasses with pets. And I think we were the only team who did like an infomercial thing. But then AI wouldn't think that. It'll think, well, everyone else is doing basically trying to explain the thing. So it'll go and copy that. Do you tend to find that with the marketing side, is that everyone's trying to copy everyone else? Because that's something I've kind of noticed with social media in general. Is like everyone's got everyone's got the same style of video. Everyone's got the same hooks. Everyone's got this. Everyone's got that. And I'm sat thinking to myself, okay, I know my marketing is not great for the podcast. I'll admit it firsthand. But if there's one thing I can sit here and say is I've not tried to copy trends.
Yeah, that's the hard thing, I think. I'm in the same boat where I'm like, I want to do something that's unique to me that is not just copy paste of what everyone else is doing. But then again, if something's working for someone else, it might be a chance it's going to work for me too. So you have kind of like something that has proof of concept. So that could be good. But also, like you're saying, that's not unique to me and people might see that. So it's definitely finding that balance. If you have all the time and resources in the world, then definitely go out and create something completely unique. But for maybe you and I, who, you know, marketing ourselves is not our full-time job, so we just have to like, streamline it to where I want to know that it's going to work. I might actually do a bit more competitive research and like funnel hack what they're doing. So if you see something that's working really well, it doesn't have to be like a direct competitor. It can be someone in a different field that works for them. That is maybe the quickest route right now. Whereas, if you have like your own marketing team on board, then you're probably more likely to have the resources to come up with a completely unique concept.
There's also reassurance because people want the guarantee that, oh, it worked for this person, so it'll work for me, sort of situation. Yeah, people. To put it nicely, people are kind of afraid to try stuff on their own.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe it's finding that balance of doing something that is authentic to you and like that you can do justice. Like some style videos, I just know that that wouldn't fit me because I couldn't fake enthusiasm in that way. Is that some people are just like comes really naturally to them. So finding something that plays into your strengths. uh, I think if you want to come up with something completely unique, you're gonna struggle. I think because I feel like there's always someone doing it much better than you or like in a similar style, so it's hard to find something that is completely unique, but that I think is the ultimate goal.
What have been the most unique or creative marketing campaigns you've seen brands or e-commerce stores do, and have any of them worked with you?
The most unique, um that's a tough one. I think what we're seeing now, which I think we're getting the most success with for ecom brands, naturally, you are pushing for people to come to the website and buy something, right? That's ultimately the goal. But we're finding that people are, bombarded with ads saying buy this and buy that. And sometimes, you need to build a little bit of rapport with your customer before they're ready to purchase, especially if it's a higher price point, maybe a little bit more of a consideration purchase. And also in January, it's quite hard to get people to buy expensive stuff if it's, not an essential product by any means. Like I'm talking about jewelry or clothing and stuff like that. Finding unique ways to get them to your website, get them to see your product. Maybe they're not ready to place an order, but they're there, they're thinking about you. So we've done it in really creative ways where we're thinking of ways to like surprise and delight your customers in different ways. So we did a really good horoscope in the beginning of the year. A lot of the target market was, the girls who like their horoscopes and that kind of stuff. So we did one like to find out what your 2025 was going to be like, and we did it in like a really engaging, interactive way where they had to go through a quiz and fill stuff out. And what's your love language? What star sign are you? And like a little bit like that, where they're already feeling like we're giving them something. We're not asking them to buy anything, but they're just there, grab their email. We're able to like build rapport and build that relationship through email, and getting people to sign up to something and give up their email address is super cheap, right? You can get an email for as little as 10p, whereas the cost to get a purchase might be 10 times that. So figuring out the ways to do it a little bit differently, and this is not something we did ever, like not last January, um, but it's like in a unique way to do it in a different way. Another client had a brand that is kind of in the mental health area of industries or however to put that. And we thought, okay, like people get the January blues. Like, how can we do something where we're not pushing the product, but we are supporting them if they're struggling? So we found a really nice way to give away this free like mental health challenge. I don't like the word challenge, but it was like try and think of one self help thing you could do every day. And one was just like going for a walk or taking a moment to read a book or declutter a space in your room, like really easy stuff that anyone could do. And people did it like a bingo, so they were like ticking off something every day, and we set up a WhatsApp community for it. And we thought we were going to have to like encourage people to post in there, but we've not posted anything, and the conversation is just going. Every time I pick up my phone, it's like 100 messages in this WhatsApp community, and I think that's something we've seen in the last few years. People really crave a sense of community, and this was just something that we gave to the customers. We weren't saying, "Oh, you need to buy something from us to be part of it." It was just about community, but it also positions the brand as more than just a brand selling stationary stuff, and it was a nice way to do something different with it.
Yeah, I agree with you. No, you don't like the term mental health challenges, like big one up. It just
Yeah,
sounds.
exactly. It doesn't sound so good, does it? But it worked out really well. Like it was just like a sheet with like things you could do every day to just give yourself a little bit of like an endorphin boost, even if it was just small stuff like listen to a podcast or whatever. But I think the action of just acknowledging that like I'm taking 1 minute a day to like do something for myself, that I'm doing to treat myself or that I'm doing for my mental health, just to have a reminder every day that stop and make sure that you're okay and be actively thinking about your mental health and things that you can do. um, and people, yeah, people really love it. They're already saying, like, what are we going to do for February? Like, can you come up with something new? So it's been really great. Like, it's been a good way to do something a little bit differently this year.
I feel sorry for whoever's running out thinking you want something for February. Oh my word.
You sound like you need to be in our community. Like, the vibes are great.
I sound like I need to be in your community.
Yeah.
What have been some of the more unique marketing stuff that you've personally done for your agency?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question.
So, what have been some of the marketing stuff that you've done to promote your own marketing agency?
Oh, you mean like that? To be completely honest, I do very little to market myself. Most of, like, I'm operate more like as a freelancer. It's always me, like, that people get to work with. I had both, like, I've both experienced building my own agency and working in-house for a lot of years, and I found the perfect sweet spot for me is just being as a freelancer rather than working with or for too many people. And yeah, I've been very, very fortunate that almost everything is coming through referrals and people that know me in the industry now. So in terms of my own stuff, very little. I think because I primarily run ads, right? That's what I do. Um, I've recently, because a lot of the brands that approach me, they're too small to run ads, and I oftentimes actually say, like, I don't think you should do it at all. Like, you're gonna waste a lot of your money here. Like, I wouldn't recommend it for you. And sometimes people take that on board, and sometimes they don't and go to someone else. And then 6 months later, they're back. Oh, I wasted all that money. Like, I never saw a return. And I'm like, yeah, well, I told you it wouldn't work out. Like, if you have a website conversion rate that's super low or you don't have a lot of budget, like, it's not going to work. Those days are gone where you could just invest into ads and it would work straight away with a super small budget, with GDPR updates, iOS 14 updates. It's just not possible anymore. So one thing I did, because I felt like there were so many brands who were getting absolutely burned by agency. There are a lot of novices in this industry who are happy to take anyone's money and just give it a go and see what happens. So I've recently launched it's like a quiz, like an ad suitability quiz that people can take. It doesn't cost anything. And then they will answer a few questions about their website and their figures, and they will get a score and how likely they, like, what I consider, how should I put it, like, how suitable they are for running ads. And like, I get a notification anytime someone's taken it, and most of the times it's brands that do not get the desired outcome, like they shouldn't run ads, which I think might be a little bit of a letdown for a lot of people, but I feel like it might save them a lot of money. I've had a client last year I spoke to last January, and I said, like, I really don't think you should do it. Like, you need to work on your website, you need to work on your email and your organic presence. Ads are great, but they're expensive. I just don't think you should do it. And then she signed up with another agency, 6 months, 6 month retainer that she couldn't back out of, and she never saw a return on that. So it's quite common for a lot of brands to have a bad experience at first. And a lot of the brands that I do end up working with, almost all of them has had a bad experience in the past.
It sounds like you then, when they come back to you, you say, without saying it, told you so.
Yeah, well, I would have never say that quite that quite put like that, but it goes to show that you can very easily waste a lot of money that way. And I think with marketing, there is never any guarantee with any sort of marketing. So it's not uncommon. Like, even myself or my agency, I wasted money on stuff that didn't work out quite the way I'd hoped. And it's just the nature of running a business and being, like, investing into any sort of marketing. Like, you never know, and people can have the best intentions and try so hard, but at the end of the day, you might find that you don't actually have a product that people want or whatever it may be. Like, I always make sure, do you have proof of concept before you come to me and start running ads? Because I never want to be in a situation where 3 months down the line and we've wasted tens of thousands of pounds. I want to be able to sleep at night, and that's just not a situation I want to be in.
Have you ever had a client who's worked with you and say 5 months later they've blown a bunch of money because their business doesn't work, or
Like, I used to work in-house for other agencies, and absolutely, like, we've had clients leave. Like, it doesn't always work out, even if we're doing everything we can, because ads are not exclusive to the rest of the business. If you're doing launching products that don't work, you stop posting organically. If your emails are shit, it's going to affect how well the ads can do. So it doesn't always work out. Yeah, like, of course, I've been in a situation that when it's gone unpleasant and maybe expectations weren't managed properly, which is one of the main reasons I wanted to go freelance and just handle it completely myself. Because ultimately, if you're in house, there is someone who works exclusively in sales, bringing in the client who can promise them everything. And it's not until they actually speak to me, their account manager, where I'm like, well, you've already paid up, but I wouldn't even recommend this to you. I think it's going to be hard, but we'll try. And that's just not a situation I want to be in anymore. Like, when I was working in house, sometimes you knew from the start, like, this probably won't work, but they've already paid and signed up for 3-month minimum retainer. I'll try. I'll try and make it work, but like, stuff like that keeps me up at night. So that's what I really try to avoid with what I do now. Like, I want to make sure it's going to work if they're coming on board, especially since it's my name on the whole thing. And I think in this industry as well, like, having a good reputation, I think, is quite important. And for me, like I said, everything's coming through referrals, so I really want to make sure it's going to work if people are signing. Otherwise, come back in 6 months and invest into your website instead, or maybe hire a social media manager would be better for you. And honestly, 75-80% of all the sales calls I have, we have a brainstorming session, and I'm like, I think it'd be more profitable for you at this point to invest into this instead, and come back after you gotten the conversion rate up, or come back when you got your email flow set up, or wherever it may be, where they're set up for success, essentially.
yeah, because the was it Alex or Mosey? I think he shared a screenshot of his upcoming book where it was one of the four marketing a cube with four marketing points, and one said, yeah, if you promote, you can promote heavily, but if people know your product's shit, then all they know is your product shit and no one's going to buy anyway, so you'll just be known as the one with the shit product.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
What got you into marketing?
So before I went and got my degree, so I'm originally from Sweden, and in Sweden, I think you tend to have a few gap years before you start studying, which doesn't seem to be the case so much in the UK. So I had quite a few years where I was just traveling, taking like odd jobs in cafes and restaurants and just getting by. So I had a lot of work experience before that, and I always gravitated towards the marketing side, the creative side. Okay, like, what kind of menu should we have? Like, how should we position ourselves on social media? Can we think of this funny reel we can do, or how can we, increase sales and profitability with what we're already doing? Whether that's coming up with new cocktails or coming up with new ways to set up the bar or whatever. Like, I always liked that part of it because in college I studied art, so like having that creative eye kind of fit it in quite nicely with doing marketing because it is such a creative job.
What is it about the creative side of marketing that keeps you coming back to it?
Well, I think when you have an idea, and like I said, I work with like small-ish brands, so it could be like a company that's 2-3 people to big corporate jobs with a board of directors, but it's still very much a situation where you have a lot of ownership of what you're doing. So it can be from coming up with an idea of, I think could work, like I said, about the horoscope, for example, or the community for mental health, like seeing it through, like getting an idea. And I get all my ideas when I'm going for a run, to then rushing home, writing it down, and seeing that come into fruition a few weeks later. It's the best feeling. And then when you see that, yes, it's working really well, it's doing exactly what we thought, there is no more like rewarding thing for me, at least, than seeing that grain of an idea come into life and have it work really well, like it's the best feeling.
Yeah, it sounds. How do I want to word this? It sounds like it's one of marketing for you is just an excuse to express yourself, but
Yeah,
in a
yeah. I think as well, like when I get an idea and I know, oh, this would work so well, and I don't have complete autonomy of what I do, and someone's, oh, we can't actually do that. I get so frustrated. And I think, oh, this should just be my business. I would have made it work, But sometimes, when it comes to stock and fulfillment, like it's not always possible to run with all of these ideas, which I find super frustrating. Because, yeah, it might be like a sense of self expression. And when it doesn't work out, I almost take it personally.
oh no. Oh, we could do the same with your cupcake business. Oh, sorry, we ran out of sugar. Oh,
Yeah, I
come on.
it's so frustrating, isn't it?
What is your criteria for you to go and say yes, I'll work with you, as opposed to saying nah? Because I know you've mentioned about some of it already with okay, we can run ads, but you kind of need to fix your website or you kind of need to sort out the ingredients in your shampoo. But what's the list of criteria where you go, yep, 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 all right, let's get to work.
Exactly. That's I always in like sales calls, I have like a checklist to be like, let's see, like qualifying questions. Should you even do this or not? What's your website conversion rate? If you have 0.5% of the traffic turning into a sale, it's never going to be cost effective to pay to send traffic there. Like it's just not going to work. You're going to waste so much money on people who like it's if you had a brick and mortar shop, you're standing outside and saying, here, take £5 if you go into my shop, but people turn around in the door. It's not a good investment for you. At least you want to have 2%, ideally even more. And 2% is a good conversion rate. So already 98% of people that come into your store are never going to buy anything. So yeah, you're going to waste a lot of money already on people who wouldn't buy anything. But it needs to be over 2%. Otherwise, I just don't think it's going to work. Um, the second thing that I spoke about at the beginning, have proof of concept. Have you gotten, 10,000 orders yet? Have you gotten enough coming through where okay, I've got great reviews. I know people love this product. Perfect. Yeah, I think it makes sense then to invest into getting more people through. Because I've had it in the past as well where it's maybe a new product or, a some company that have investors who can just push throw as much money as possible onto the product, and then it turns out all their reviews were bad. People hate this product. It doesn't actually solve a problem for their clients, and it's like, we should have checked this before we spent 100,000 on ads. So I like to make sure that it works before we spend any more. And social presence is super important. If you have an account with 200 followers, people are going to think, is there something shady going on here? There's no proof. There's no social proof. They want to see other people enjoying your product, because otherwise people are going to be like, okay, I saw the ad, cool product. Then I go onto your Instagram and you have 1 follower. People are going to think, is this some scam? People are quite savvy. Yeah, like quite savvy. They know that there's a lot of scams going around. They're not going to put in their car details into just any brand. It has to look established for it to work. So that's another thing. And then also like how much they're willing to spend. So when it comes to spending on ads, I say you shouldn't spend less than £2,000 a month ever. That's the very, very minimum. This is for ecom. For lead generation, you can be a little bit different. And that should never be more than 20% of your monthly revenue. So if you're doing 5,000 a month, you cannot spend 2,000 on ads. You're going to burn through your cash flow. And what if, it might take 2-3 months before it really starts to work. So can you really afford that in the beginning for bootstrap companies? I just don't think this is a good investment. You need to be at least 10 to 15,000 revenue per month before you can afford to do ads. And this is my opinion as someone who's done this for quite a few years. There is so many ads agencies and people in this industry who will happily take your money at a 0.5 conversion rate. If you have 500 to spend, perfect, give it to me, I'll do your ads for you. Cannot guarantee any results, of course. So there's absolutely people who will happily take your money, happily do it, but I've never seen it really work unless you have an amazing offer, like an amazing product where it might be a bit different, or like a very unique industry or whatever. It's different for everyone, but generally that's what I'd say.
I suppose as well is that you cut out all the ones that are just going to waste your time, or is going to inevitably, because like you said with the referrals, well, it works both ways with that. So they'll come back to you, or you'll work with them. It doesn't go the way they want, and then they'll just go tell them all their friends that Julie is awful at this, because although saying that they really should have been working with you from the word go.
Exactly that. I don't want to, at the end of the day, some of these business owners are lovely. Like, I would love to work with them. I think the brand's amazing, but they're just not quite there yet. And it's really because I couldn't sleep at night if I know that that's not working for them. Ultimately, I'm just a normal person. So if I know, you know, they're wasting so much of their money, they're maybe have small kids at home, they've invested their savings into this. I just couldn't sleep at night knowing that. So I want to make sure like it's a good investment, because people sometimes think that, okay, I've got my website, I got my stock, now I just need traffic, I just need to pay for someone to send traffic to my website. Like, those days are gone. It doesn't work like that anymore. It is far too competitive out there to have, you know, not a perfect website or not a perfect sales funnel. You need to make sure that you are set up for success before you invest into anything.
Would you say that you've got to make sure everything's perfect before you start? It's sort of acting as a gatekeeping, or like as a
Yeah.
gatekeeper to, yeah. So I'm basically had to bootstrap and just cobble together this podcast with what I had and what I can get along the way. But that has definitely hinders my growth for this podcast, because admittedly I'm just using a laptop camera for this because that's all I can get, because I was using my other camera at one point, but to say the frame rate's awful is nice. But my point isn't the camera's bad. The point is because everyone, the audience, kind of expects this perfect marketing, this perfect looking footage, everything to be crisp and clean from the wire to go. Would you say the bar's too high?
No, I mean, if it's a passion project for you and you're happy with slow and steady growth, I think, do it. I think everyone should, if they have a passion for something, they should absolutely do it. But when it comes to you being like, okay, I've got my podcast, I'll spend 10,000 of my savings on ads now, and just, you might end up wasting that. That's like where I have a problem. Like, it might not work. And ultimately, it might sound a bit harsh, but if you, like, I don't know your background, but if you don't have any business background, any marketing background, you don't have any sort of experience within this field, oftentimes those are the people who have this sense of optimism that how hard can it be, and then when you work in it a long time, it is really hard. Okay, it's very difficult. And like, it's the same for me. Like, when I started freelancing, I was like, how hard can it be? Like, I'll figure it out. And it's not until now, 5 years later, I'm like, if I knew how hard it was going to be, I probably wouldn't have done it. I would probably just gotten a normal job. And I think if you're setting out to start your own company, it's probably a good thing that you don't know how hard it's going to be.
I'm laughing because of how true that is.
Yeah,
Oh, that's my thought process of this podcast. Oh, it should be
yeah,
so easy.
yeah. But you have to have that. Like, be like a little bit naive. And I have a lot of my clients who, say the same thing. Like, oh my God, I was so naive. I can't believe I spent thousands on stock. I didn't know if it was ever going to work. But you need that kind of like childlike wonder that I have this amazing brand, it's going to be fine. But the more you work in that field, you learn there's so much to know about it. To the point, like, if, like I said, if you knew that before, you probably wouldn't even have done it.
No, I mean, but then that, you know what they say, growth comes from discomfort or the
Mm,
unknown.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly that. And I think if you just do it, oftentimes these you know things like leads to the biggest rewards, because you're going down an unknown route, and they like definitely could work. But I will say, like, the bottom line for the people um who does grow if you are like a bootstrap doing things completely on your own. And I'm gonna quote James Clear on this, but like you don't rise to your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And I think this is where a lot of solopreneurs and bootstrap businesses are struggling, because you're coming up with a brand new company. There is no system there. You're just waking up every day and seeing what can you do. But 100%, I'm such a believer in this. Like, you need to have a system for everything. When are you recording content? How are you marketing yourself, and be consistent with it? Something that you can do every day for a year to make it work. Whereas a lot of small businesses, especially online businesses, tomorrow I'll wake up and I'll feel like filming for Instagram, and I'll start posting every day on LinkedIn. I'm going to do, if you don't have a system for that, of when you're going to do it, how you're going to do it, it will never work. And I think when you are your own boss, and if you didn't do it, it wouldn't matter. Like, no one's going to be mad at you if you forgot. That's where you need to be very disciplined with yourself and be your own boss. And I always try to think of myself, if I had hired myself for this role, would I have been happy with Julia's output today? And it's a great way to hold myself accountable and be like, don't give myself the easy way out just because I don't actually have to do my own marketing, or I don't actually have to show up online, or whatever it may be. Um, that's not how to run a business, essentially. And oftentimes that's where solopreneurs struggle, because I work with some brands who've got a marketing manager in-house. That's her job, and her bonus depends on it, so she's going to be super on the ball to make shit happen. Whereas founders, oh yeah, I didn't get around to sending out my newsletter, I'll do it next week. If that was your job and you'd hire yourself for that, would you find it acceptable to say that, like, oh, I didn't have time, I'll do it next week? Like, it's not acceptable. This is your business, and you're kind of slacking at it. So this is very harsh, but for me, I think you have to be like disciplined, have systems for it to work, when you are the only one who's going to know if you didn't do what you told yourself you were going to do.
Yeah, I had a bit of a hiccup with this podcast the other day, yesterday actually, and I didn't realize I did it till I noticed it. I looked at it and went, "Oh, big whoops!" Because it's one of those examples you described. I looked at it and went, "Oh, whoops! I genuinely thought I did this thing," but then I said to one of my previous guests that if you want something, you make the time for it. If you don't want something, you come up with a bunch of excuses. And I think the way you've just described is perfect. It was like, oh, I didn't send out the email today, I'll do it tomorrow. It's like, I have a rule with that personally, where if I say I'm going to do something tomorrow, you better bloody do it tomorrow. Otherwise, you were just talking out of your ass for that.
Yeah, it wouldn't be acceptable in like a corporate job or like any job to just, oh, I didn't do that. So why are you doing it in your own business? Like, that's ultimately your passion that you wanted to do. So it's it's a good, like, okay, like, we're all human. Like, I also forget to do stuff, and I'm like, okay, I feel like shit today, I'll do it tomorrow or whatever it may be. So it's, take it with like a pinch of salt. Like, I think if the more days you can hold yourself accountable and be disciplined, the easier it is for you if you have, a day where you just take a duvet day and forget about it. Because then you have all these other days in a row where you were perfect, or that you actually stuck to what you said you were going to do. Then one day doesn't matter. I think, like with building any habit, it's just figuring out what you want to do, have a system, and the longer you do it, the more you get into it. I have a very A-type personality Notion board where I track everything, and it's a little bit maybe sad. Like, I track, what I'm gonna eat, where I'm gonna run, like my workouts. I have like reminders for everything, like when I'm gonna change my bed sheets, when I'm gonna do meal prep. Like, it's all in there. So there's a system that's so easy for me, where I don't have to think at all. Like, I can just think about my work, and everything else is just happening on autopilot around me. And I think that's been a huge part of my success, because I don't have to spend a lot of time thinking about other stuff. And anything that It doesn't require my like direct hands on. It's automated. It's happening anyway. Because I think when you are like self-funded or like um, starting out a new business, your most valuable commodity is going to be your time, and figuring out how to be super effective and automating and outsourcing what doesn't require your direct hands on them has been a great way to like be more effective with that.
You should see my calendar. I mean, I know
Yeah,
what you mean with the yeah.
yeah,
No, I
it's
know what
good,
you
isn't
mean
it?
with yeah. I know what you mean with the you plan it with oh this is the time I do this. This is the time I do this because it just keeps you on track.
Yeah, exactly that.
What makes a good marketing agency?
That's a good question. I think if if there is like a founder who is on the sales call and you never see them again after you signed on, that this is a red flag, I think. Um, I obviously have had mixed experiences working in house and what's that like, but oftentimes you are going to be assigned to an account manager who is managing way more accounts than what they should do and have very limited time for you. So if you are going to hire a marketing agency, check who are you going to be working with. Can you meet them on the sales calls before you sign on with like a lengthy retainer or something like that? Understanding that they are, from my perspective, this is to do with ads. Are they going to help you with creative, coming up with the concepts, the angles, the hooks? The biggest um, factor in being successful with ads now is the creative. Like I said, you don't need to be so granular with audience and blah blah blah. You can watch a YouTube video and learn how to set up the ads yourself. It's not hard. Like anyone could do it. But figuring out what text, what hook, what creative to use, that's where you need someone's expertise. And that's what they should provide for you. Because the rest you might as well do it yourself. And I see a lot of people on TikTok, founders who run their own ads in house, which I think is great. Like if you can figure out how to do it yourself, you're gonna save yourself a lot of money initially. You know, if you get to a point where you're doing hundreds of £1,000s a month, you need to hire someone to help you manage those things. So it's not always like how, it's who you work with. But then they will share like, oh, ads is so easy because I'm doing it for my business and this works really well for me. You know, you only have experience with one brand, one ad account, and one thing that works for you, whereas a marketing agency or a well-rounded marketer can draw experience from so many different ad accounts, so many different industry, what worked well for someone else that might work well here. So having that broad spectrum of accounts you work with, brands you work with, does give you such a competitive edge when it comes to crafting really high performing ad campaigns.
Julia Valentine, everyone. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about you or hire you as a marketing agent?
Yeah, I think most people come through my Instagram or my TikTok where I'm just julia.valentin. I do have a website. It's called Always Online Agency. It's alwaysonline.agency. And of course, on LinkedIn, I am very active across all my channels, like I've just been saying about holding myself accountable. But yeah, those are probably the best ways to get a hold of me. And if you are an e-commerce brand, you know, I'd love to talk to you and just have a brainstorm session. I can't promise we are going to work together. You might need to go and work on your website or something else. But yeah, I'm always available for just a chat or a brainstorm session.
I hope you've enjoyed that episode with Julia Valentine. If you have and you're looking for a playlist instead of just single episodes, then I have the entire playlists for the podcast and the clips right here and here. Go on, pick one.